ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। ॐ सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रयविनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नमः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। Hरि Om, salutations to all. So, in this fifth canto, we saw the 12th chapter. Rahugana, King Rahugana was given the knowledge by Jadabharatji, and he tells him also, gives him the Vairagya Upadesh also, that this body is made up of earth, the palki is made up of earth, the body of the king also and the body of Jadabharat is all made up of earth, and it will finally go back into the earth. So what is the pride that the king is having about him being superior and others being inferior? And then he couldn't stop himself, so he tells him that how he was King Bharat in the earlier lives. And Rahugana is very surprised too. He's taken aback because Bharat Raja is very well known, country is named after him, and a great king he was. And then how Jadabharat now tells him that I was that king and I left everything, lived in detachment in the forest, and then I got attached to the deer. And in the memory of the deer, I died. The deer left after a point in time. In the memory of that, I died and I became a deer further. Interesting point to know here is not mentioned in the Bhagavatam directly, but some Mahatmas they explain that that deer is Rahugana. That deer to whom Jadabharat ji had got attached is Rahugana now. And Jadabharat, who was King Bharat, now is in front of him as this realized master. So you see how karma also is, and how they both are again brought together. But this time, Jadabharat is not attached at all. He is already reveling in detachment because he realized his mistake, and he, even in the life of a deer, he remembered by the grace of Bhagavan because of his earlier sadhana. He remembered how he got attached, he fell, and he has become this deer now. And so when he is reborn as human being, he lives completely in detachment, doesn't get attached to anybody, and he has attained a state of oneness with the divine. Now you see, the deer has come back in the form of Rahugana. And so Jadabharat is not offended in that sense. If we see, he is realized being, and so even though Rahugana insulted him, Jadabharat didn't take offense, and Rahugana finally sought refuge and sought forgiveness, and out of great compassion, Jadabharat ji is giving this knowledge also to him. So attachments can last over lifetimes. One point to understand. But if we realize so karmic consequences is what I meant, sorry, not attachment. Karmic consequences can last lifetimes. In one lifetime, he was attached. In this lifetime, he is not attached. The jiva is the same of the deer. The deer and Rahugana is the same jiva. But Jadabharat has lifted himself to such heights of detachment that even though the jiva is the same, karma has brought both of them together, he is not further attached. Now somebody may say, "Kare Swamiji, but he does not know that he was the deer in the earlier life, and so if he knew he was the deer in the earlier life, maybe he would have got attached." See, that point is he doesn't need to know that person is a deer, was the deer in the earlier life. He knows this much that I fell because of my attachment, and how silly of me to get attached like that after knowing the temporary nature of life, after seeing everything in life, renouncing it all. Further, I got attached. So he learned from that mistake, which we see when we saw his life as a deer and then again as Jadabharat. So when one has learned that lesson, that's all is required. We don't need the memory of which Jiva was what in which life and what was my sambandha with them, what was their sambandha with me. None of that is required. What is required is, did I learn my lesson or not? And if I have not learned my lesson, I will keep repeating the same mistake till I learn the lesson. I will keep going through same similar situations and keep going through challenges, difficulties, all that. So Rahugana has come as a deer now, but Jadabharat is not affected by it. For all we know, he may be knowing also that this is the deer because he reached the highest state of realization. If he wants to know, he can easily know that, oh, this Rahugana only is the deer. But that's not necessary. Which is why we see in the Gita, Bhagavan says that 15th chapter, he says, Mattah smritihi jnanam apohanam cha. From me comes the memory, smriti, jnanam, knowledge, and apohanam, forgetfulness. Now, what is the forgetfulness there? One of the meanings of the word forgetfulness there is that Bhagavan has made us forget the memories of the past lives. They are there somewhere in the deep subconscious mind, unconscious mind. They are there. Samskaras are there. If one wants to, they may be brought back, but that is not necessary. What we need to do is what we have gone through, if we introspect on it, learn our lessons out of it, drop the experience. Just like food we eat. Now, the food we eat, the essence of it, we assimilate in the body. It will nourish and nurture the body, make it healthy. The waste part comes out, we throw it out. Imagine if we retain all that, body will be unmanageable. But that we are doing in the mind, going on retaining memories after memories after memories, and those which are overwritten or which are pushed into the subconscious, unconscious mind, also we are trying to revisit them. Not required. So here Rahugana got the knowledge from Jadabharat. Jadabharat tells him that I was this deer in the earlier life and now I am born as this Jadabharat here. But it is because of devotion to Bhagwan that I remembered what I was before I became a deer, how I fell, and then now I dropped the body of the deer and now I am here as this role that I am playing. And so he says that in the 12th chapter, he concluded by saying that by detachment from matter and attachment to the devotees, one gains this sword of knowledge, jnanasi, by which one can cut asunder this entire illusion that the world is real, this body is me. That's the illusion. One can cut asunder that. And by hearing and speaking about Bhagavan, Harim tad iha kathana shrutabhyam labdha smritir yat yat yati param advanaha yadyati param. So by remembering, by speaking about Bhagavan Hari, what will happen? One goes across the ocean of samsara. Now, what is that samsara? Now, here in this 13th and 14th chapter, so 13th chapter, he gives an analogy of a forest. Bhava Atavi, it is called. In the first shloka only it comes. Bhava Atavim Yatina Sharma Vindati. Bhava Atavi. Atavi is forest. Bhava is this samsara. Bhu bhavati means to become. Samsara is where we feel our sense of finitude, limitation, and we continuously want to become something so that we feel infinite, which is our true nature, so that we feel fulfilled. But no matter what we become, emptiness still remains somewhere. So until realization of the self doesn't happen, there is no mukti from this bhava atavi. So in some places it is bhava sagar, in this context it is bhava atavi, it is a forest. Now in 13th chapter, the analogy of the forest is given, and a group of merchants have gone into this forest, and what all challenges they go through, and still with all the difficulties they still don't take Bhagwan's name. And Bharatji gives the analogy and tells Rahugana that how he can come out of this forest, and then he departs. Bharatji goes. In the next chapter, 14th one, see Rahugana as a king, smart enough, and he understood also, and Bharatji taught him through the means of this metaphor. So he did not need elaborate explanation from Bharatji, but we may need. And so Shukadevji asks, sorry, Parikshit ji asks Shukadevji, and Shukadevji explains in detail the symbolism of that Bhavatavi. So we will take this simultaneously, then it becomes easy. Otherwise, today's class we will cover the Bhavatavi and the next class symbolism if we go chapter wise, but we will take it together. So each metaphor of the Bhavatavi as it is given, we will see the parallels. So now, what does Bharatji say? See now, Bharatji, the Bhagavatam here says Brahmana Uvacha. So he's born in the Brahmana uh, body. As a Brahmana, he is born. So, Brahmana Uvacha. Duratyaye dhvanyajaya niveshito rajastamasattva vibhakta karmadruk sa esha sarthortha parapparibhraman bhavatavim yati na sharma vindati. So here the metaphor which is given is there is a group of merchants who has gone into this forest. They want to acquire various goods, various things, which they can go and they can sell and they can earn their livelihood, they can make profit and all that. And so um, they are doing activities in this as per the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamaha, vibhakta, karmadrik. And they are wanting to acquire lasting wealth. They enter into this forest of mundane existence. So Bhavatavi it is called as forest of mundane existence, where no matter what one does, one still doesn't find delight. Yatina Sharma Vindati. So that's the metaphor. What is the symbolism here? It is the jiva. See, there's a group of merchants. So it's like all the jivas. So many jivas, we come into this Sativi, which is this forest. We come into this world. And each one has come into the world as per their combination of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, and each one is engaging in karma based on the combination of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. So why is there a variety in this universe? Why are people doing different things? Why do people have different desires? Though our basic raw material is the same, everybody is made up of five elements. The body is made up of five elements. Mind is also made up of five elements. Mind is made up of five subtle elements. Body is made up of five grosser elements. So raw material is the same, but why the variety in the universe? And that is not only in human beings, it is everywhere. All the plants, birds, animals, everywhere we see Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, the play of that is going on. Here specifically we are talking about human beings. Merchants are symbolic of those jivas who have come into this bhavatavi, and one goes through because one has forgotten one's true self, conditioned by these three gunas. One has come into this world, one is acting based on those three gunas, and one goes on searching for lasting happiness here. If one is lost in a forest, very difficult. So Digbrahma will happen. Directions one will lose. One will get psyched up also. So this samsara is like that. But the strange part is one thinks that one is not lost. One thinks one knows where one is going and one is sure about it. And with great determination, one is acting this, I want to achieve this, then I will do this, then I will do that, which is good in one sense. There's nothing wrong in it by itself. But why am I doing all this? Who am I? Many times that is not clear. So one is actually lost. Sometimes it takes time to even understand that, I am actually lost. Then when that realization hits, yes, actually I am lost. Then one starts seeking, okay, what is the real path? Where am I now? How to go about it? Some satsang comes, some spiritual knowledge. So here it is, the person is lost, is struggling, and struggles for existence without the shelter of the pure devotees. So the person is lost but doesn't search for the way out because one doesn't even know one is lost. That's the play of Maya. So while this play is on, what happens now? That is said. There are 6 enemies, thieves, plunderers, who come, and this misguided merchants who are there, they loot them. He says, in that forest, O ruler of men, there are 6 highwaymen, meaning robbers, who rob this company led by an unworthy chief. And finding access to their camp, jackals drag away an unwary member of the company, even as wolves carry away a stray sheep. So in this forest, there are wild animals which are there, and just like the wolves, they carry away a stray sheep, the sheep which has gone away from the herd. Easily they drag it away. In that way, there are highway robbers, highway thieves. Now, who are these 6? Obviously, they are the Shad Ripus, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, 6 enemies. And it can also mean the 5 senses and the mind. So those are also 6. When through these senses one wants uncontrolled indulgence, one has no sense control, then the mind is robbed. This jiva is robbed, sorry. The jiva gets robbed because the peace of mind, that is the thing that gets robbed. The peace of mind goes. All senses drag, each sense will drag. Now, one sense is enough to pull a person down if one gets attached, whether it is to food or seeing things or touching, hearing, smelling, tasting, anything. One is enough. If one is attached, they will pull. Human being is attached to 5 senses of knowledge and many to 5 senses of action, so 10 actually. So if we take 6 enemies as 5 Shad Ripus, that is one description, which is what will be more applicable. But here also it is said further that there are 5 senses and the mind, and through that the jiva gets bound completely. And now, who are these jackals? Now, the jackal is not necessarily, see, in the analogy there, the metaphor there, the jackal is a wild animal and dangerous creature, and different from the merchant. The merchant is different, jackal is different, 2 different species. Here, who are they? So it is said here they are the family members. That's a little change in the metaphor, but here they are the family members who take away all his wealth, though he tries to guard it. They are the jackals. And so, don't we see that happening in the samsara? People have got killed by their own children, or children have killed their own fathers. For what? Wealth. Arthamanartham bhavaya nityam nasti tata sukhalesha satyam. Putradapi dhanabhajam bhiti sarvatraisha vihitariti. Bhajagovindam Shankaracharya says, one should keep thinking artham anartham. Artha, wealth is calamitous. Please remember the psychological aspect of wealth. If it is used as a functional need and a utility is a very different matter. But most of the time it becomes psychological, status issue, pride, prestige, ego, domination, control. That is a psychological aspect of wealth. And for that, people don't even bother about relationships, close relationships, become ungrateful, kill, destroy, do conspiracies. What all happens? This entire thing may sound pessimistic to us, but actually it is not pessimistic. It is Pratipaksha Bhavana. It is to induce Vairagya. And Jada Bharat is telling this to Raja Raghugana to get Vairagya created in him. See, this is the satsang, the power of satsang. Only when we come to satsang, we will be able to see the limitations of samsara and the sorrows in samsara. Samsara is not going to show its own sorrows directly. It will only show glamour, glitter, and one keeps aspiring more and more and more for that. But what is the reality? One will see when one comes to satsang. So, Jada Bharatji is giving that Upadesh, is Vairagya, meant for Vairagya only this is. So, the more one thinks about it, the more the Vairagya will arise because this Vivek one is doing. What is real and what is unreal? And what is unreal, I am thinking of it as real, and what is real, I have forgotten that. And so here he gives this analogy, this entire metaphor. Then he says that there are these dense bowers composed of bushes, grass, creepers, and there are so many mosquitoes inside that. There are cruel gnats inside that, and they bite these people, the merchants, and sometimes they see imaginary city, Gandharva Nagari, they see in the forest, and while they look up at the sky, at other places they behold a fleeting augur, like a ghost appearing like a firebrand. So what is the meaning of that? So this grahastha ashrama is like that bush. So he says that this grahastha ashram, there are lots of activities that happen in this grahastha ashram, and unless the desire to enjoy family life is completely burnt up, it returns again and again like the weeds among the crops. And there are people who are very low in their thinking. They are like that biting mosquitoes. And there are thieves who are like the locusts, vultures, and the rats. There are people, how much one has to be alert to protect whatever one has. Sometimes the servants, they rob away certain things. Sometimes the thief attacks, steals. How much security one has to keep for it. Even sometimes the banks, when we put the money into that, or wherever, invest the money into some mutual fund or any cooperative, whatever, society, house, or the bank, etc. Scams happen, money gone. So he gives those parallels, and he says that how there are people who are waiting to rob you. One may do a lot of hard work, activity, grahastha ashram, one is stuck into that, and duty, responsibilities, all that is fine. But there are also these challenges which are there. Then, what is that Gandharva Nagari? So, this mind which is filled with lust and desires, etc., will fancifully imagine, I will go here, I will enjoy, I will go to whatever, some nice place. This is my vacation, this is my dream vacation, this is my enjoyment, I will go to this hotel, eat that food. It goes on imagining. So he sees the material world as permanent, like the Gandharva Nagari is actually illusory, it's not real. But to this person who is seeing it appears very real, and one imagines enjoying in that Gandharva Nagari. Same thing one is doing in this world. This world is illusory. It is actually the Gandharva Nagari. But we are thinking it is real. So then one is imagining where he drinks, eats, has carnal pleasure. Being overly attached, he chases after sense objects just as a deer chases the mirage. That illusoriness of this world is brought out. Then what is that ghost? So it is said that it is said like the firebrand, like the ghost appears like the firebrand. So firebrand is yellowish, right? So the symbolism here is that is a gold. How much one runs behind gold? So they desire gold, they run after it. Gold is the source of material opulence and envy, and people in passion are attracted to it. And how much one, you know, uh, again, one's status, one's position, and many things get determined by that. What type of gold and how much gold and necklaces and ornaments, and people show what their opulence by having gold. I was seeing somewhere long back some video. The whole toilet is made up of gold. The seat is made up of gold. That flush, whatever that is made up of gold. For this body, which is a bundle of dirt and filth. In the Gita, that's why it is said, Samaloštashma Kanchana. One clod of earth, one stone, clay, stone, and gold, all same. Loshta Kanchana. And for Pandita, it is same. There is no difference. But in the world, oh, gold ring and gold necklace and whatever. So for that, so that's like that bhuta. You know that bhuta, one quality of the bhuta is the avesha. Bhuta will overpower somebody. Bhut avesh, pret avesh, when it happens, that person forgets oneself and is under the avesh of that bhuta. Gold is one meaning here is that. And person is obsessed with gold, forgets oneself also, sometimes forgets dharma, forgets morality, does anything. Why I need that? Again, I'm saying, see this wealth, gold, enjoyment, house, grahast ashram, by itself, they don't have a problem if we are anchored in bhakti, if we are aware that these are temporary and we are here to not run behind them, be attached to them. They may be there for karmic reasons. We are here to realize the truth, to serve Bhagavan, to know our oneness with the Lord. If that is known clearly, we may use all this but not be affected by it. But one doesn't know. Like Rahugana is thinking all this is real. That's why he's having superiority complex, right? So Bharatji is giving this knowledge to him, saying that this is like a ghost. It is not real and it will overpower you, and then one is running behind it. So that is one analogy. Then further going ahead, he says, looking upon a habitat, water, and wealth as their own, they run about here and there in the forest. O Rahugana, while at some places they cannot distinguish the quarters smoky with the dust raised by a whirlwind. Their eyes are blinded with that dust. So the whirlwind analogy is given here, that the intelligence is victimized by home, wealth, relatives, and goes on. And one is running here and there, searching for success. Eyes are covered by this whirlwind, one can't see clearly. So, what is the symbolism here? The symbolism here is that one is running for what? To build some house, to get some water connection, to attain some wealth, to maintain this body. And in that, one has forgotten what is the true purpose of life and perpetually running around in this material existence. What is that whirlwind which dust which has gone into the ice and then the ice get closed? One can't see, and then there is dust flying all around you also, and the eyes are also closed, it has gone in. So he says, what is that? He says that is the beauty of the opposite gender which blinds the person. And you see all around that glamour is so much on display nowadays. It has become so much more difficult for a sadhak. In the name of open society, liberal thinking, and breaking stereotypes, what all is happening? And what young children are exposed to at such a young age, where their vivek is not yet fully developed, and they are getting exposed to all this, so many different types of genders, and gender identity is such a big crisis for the young people today. Now, biologically, I'm something, my mind, my gender identity is something else, and what all kinds of confusions. So here he says that this opposite gender and becoming blind with the lusty desire disobeys the dharma. See, even if one wants to have carnal pleasure, there is uh, certain rules which are given in our shastra, so that that lust gets sublimated. One, two, that energy is utilized for better purposes also. And the mind is not, third, most important is the mind is not completely hijacked by that. That's the purpose of that dharma. And so when one says that, certain enjoyments can be done only after marriage, and there also there are rules which are given on which days one should do, which days one should not do. All that is given in our shastra. But who follows all that today, anytime, anywhere, anyhow, is pathetic. The human being has fallen to worse degree than an animal, because animals carnal life is regulated by nature. Human being is not regulated at all. And one thinks that that is modernity and that is greatness. 200-year-old culture, that is, which is just is a baby in time. This is a 10,000-year-old culture. Who has to learn from whom? We are behaving like those small children. They are, imagine, they are babies. And our people here are still younger than them and learning from those babies, thinking they are great. What is our level then? And what the world is going through, if you actually see, so much chaos is because of that lifestyle, which is bhoga vritti. That lifestyle. How to enjoy also, our culture has given beautiful ways to enjoy, to enhance that enjoyment as well as not be bound by it. But who looks into it? One is looking out there. And half the things there are not even true. One will feel so dumb and foolish if one actually comes to know so many facts. Just today I was seeing one whole video which is saying that the entire research on HIV is wrong. And there is no proof of the HIV virus and AIDS, and that it is transmitted and it is contagious and all that. There is no valid data. For 15, 20 years, people have been misguided on the HIV research. Same thing they did with cholesterol. They want pharmaceutical companies to increase, so they kept on promoting cholesterol drugs and all that. And it has caused so much havoc. We are the guinea pigs. And so many things they are rejecting there, we are adopting that now. That is terrible. So he says here that this dust which has gone into the ice is like that, that's the whirlwind. So that is the lust and uncontrolled indulgence, where dharma is not followed, uh, and then what happens? So he says, disobeys the dharma governing the carnal life. He does not know that his disobedience is witnessed by the devatas, and that karma will come back. See whether devatas are there, and because dharma is not followed, meaning one does not do the offering to the devatas, one does not live the dharmic way of life, and one is living more as a bhogi, not living in terms of yoga, then the karma will catch up. What is one's duty, how one should live in harmony with nature, and we are seeing that or not. How much havoc we are causing to the entire environment. Why? Because of the material outlook. The world is a place for me to extract maximum enjoyment, and doesn't matter how what happens to it. I eat, drink, and be merry. That is my mantra. And then give talks on sustainability and ecological imbalance and being eco-friendly and this and that. But live in the personal life in the same way where comfort is a maximum that I crave for. And I don't bother actually. Then what will happen? The whole society goes down. There are few people who don't make a big tom-tom of anything, but they are actually living ecologically sustainable ways, and they are living practically in their ways how they can live without hurting and harming the environment as much as they can. So here he says this, that the analogy of the whirlwind, this is the symbolism. To acquire water, he runs after a mirage. Then he says, um, so sometimes one knows that's a mirage, but one is running because one is thirsty. So same way, sometimes he appreciates the futility of sense enjoyment, but due to the body identification, he forgets and again runs behind material enjoyment. Sometimes the heart is pained by hearing the sounds of owls and invisible crickets. So the person is aggrieved by the chastisement of his enemies and government servants who use harsh words. At that time, his heart and ears become very saddened. Then he says here that they betake themselves to unholy trees when oppressed with hunger, while at some places they run after a mirage that we saw. What are these trees? So he says that when his pious credits are finished, he takes shelter of the wealthy men, the living dead who cannot help him in this life or the next, meaning who make them do adharmic things, which will neither help in this life or the next life. Because the analogy is that uh, unholy trees, meaning adharmic wealthy people. See, it's not that wealthy people by itself will not help you, but these are adharmic, like the unholy trees. Same way, adharmic people, they one takes refuge of the adharmic people, and then they will make you do corrupt things and wrong things, and karmic bondage also one gets, legal issues also one may get into. Then he jumps into a shallow river. So they march towards streams without water, and when starving, they seek food from one another. There they meet with a forest conflagration and get scorched with fire, while at some other place they give way to despair when about to be killed by yakshas. Three difficult things that they go through. One is that there's no proper water. So, what is the symbolism? To mitigate the distress, the conditioned soul receives cheap blessings from the Gnostics, from the atheists or pseudo gurus. And in that association, they lose their intelligence. Then begging food from others. So he says that he cannot arrange for his own maintenance, hence he tries to exploit his own father or son. Suffers from burning heat, that conflagration of forest fire. No? His family life has nothing favorable for perpetual happiness. He is burned by the fire of lamentation and condemns himself as being unfortunate and impious. Then he becomes sad because of the wealth plundered by the yakshas. So there are people in power, officials who are there who turn against him and take away all his wealth. Then he loses all enthusiasm and appears without any, desire to even live. You just think so many things which are given here. Some or the other one would have gone through. And the strange thing is, even after going through all that, this you will see this as it concludes. You will see mind doesn't turn towards Bhagwan. It still finds some hope or something. If not this, that person. If not this place, that place. And if this person has done this to me, I will take revenge against that person. And whole life goes into that. It is such a temporary existence. And the body which we have is the best body, which is human body. And that is used for such petty things. That is what this is whole thing driving to, that what are we doing with this human body, this human life, precious opportunity, and that is getting squandered like this. Then he goes on ahead. So he says that when dispossessed of their wealth by other heroic men, they feel depressed in spirits, grieving and getting confused, they faint away. And entering an imaginary city somewhere, they rejoice for an hour or so as though happy. So one then imagines some palatial city, enters it with the family, wants to enjoy. So here the parallel which is given is sometimes he dreams that his dead father or grandfather has come back and he thus feels happy. All this is in imagination. Sometimes he wants to climb mountain but his feet become pierced by thorns. So he says in household life, to fulfill desire, there are so many rituals sometimes one does. It need not be only religious rituals, it can be anything. And they are like this, extensive, troublesome to execute, not very easy. You just think about it, one house one has to buy, or some child has to get married, or any such thing. Set up a whole business. How many struggles, how many challenges, what all one has to go through for that. And what will one get finally out of that? In the big picture. See, not that by itself any of that is useless. There is a learning in it. There is enough to give us vairagya also. But we don't calculate this. Now, how much investment we are putting into it and what are we actually getting out of it? That, and how much did it take me closer to Bhagavan and how much did it take me away from Bhagavan? That one doesn't think. So even if I achieve a great, success in some business I've set up, or my child's wedding has happened nicely, or whatever, I've done some big project and even helped out people, no doubt in all that. But did I do it in dharmic way? Did it increase my bhakti, vairagya, seva bhav, or did it increase my ego? Many times these calculations, these thinking one doesn't do. One is looking only at the externalities. So he gives all these analogies. Then he says that overwhelmed by hunger, he becomes angry at his family members. So he's trying to climb a mountain, thorns are piercing his feet, and then he's overcome with hunger, becomes very angry. So, parallel is due to the bodily hunger, the thirst, and thus the conditioned soul becomes impatient and angry with his own sons, daughters, and wives. See, the hunger need not be physical hunger only here. The hunger can also be the emotional hunger, intellectual hunger, where no matter what one has achieved, one is still hungry, one is still not satisfied. Contentment is not there, one can't appreciate people, one is frustrated, irritated, always thinking what one doesn't have, or what should have been, or what challenges are there right now, or some disadvantages are there right now. One is focusing only on those. Then one becomes irritable, angry, upset, fights with people. So don't we see that happening? One will be wondering, hey, this person has everything, must be very happy. But you ask that person's close people, they will say, hey, is most frustrating person to live with or to work with. doesn't have any contentment, any praise for any good work being done by anybody, very insecure person, Hare Ram. Then, overwhelmed by hunger, huh? Then it is said that in the forest, cast in the forest now and devoured by a serpent belonging to the species known as the boa constrictor. They have no consciousness left in them, and now bitten by poisonous creatures, snakes, etc., fallen in some well, deprived of the sight, remain lying down there in darkness. Devoured meaning bit, not that eaten away completely by a snake. That's a analogy given here. That devoured meaning some snake might have bit him. So, in sleep, people remain in the darkness of ignorance and cannot understand what is going on in life. That is the parallel given about the python or a snake that devours. Meaning, if suppose you are devoured actually when you are in darkness, then you dead, finished, right? So, symbolism given here is that darkness of ignorance. One can't understand what is going on. Then sometimes these poisonous creatures they bite, and this person blinded falls into the well. So what does that mean? So there are envious enemies who are there, and the person falls from the prestigious position, like snake bites, and one gets, this poison will run over the whole body, and one falls paralyzed and all that. Same way, some envious enemies are there who want to pull you down, who don't want to see your success, who are envious and they are waiting to pull you down, and then they manage to do that. So through the tricks of the envious enemies, this person falls from the prestigious position, unable to sleep, loses the intelligence. Blinded means loses the intelligence, is troubled at heart, and one has fallen into this dark well of infame or lack of glory or poverty or whatever it may be. Then in that well, when he has fallen, then what does he do? He tries to climb up, and he's seen some honeycomb, so he tries to get that honey, and these honeybees attack him, bite him, sting him, and even if he manages to get a little bit of that honey, there are others who snatch it away from him. So what does that mean? So even in this desperate situation, this person is still searching for some sense enjoyment, and here Shukadevji says that attracted by some little happiness like that honeycomb, he has illicit sex or steals others' property. Then is arrested by the government or chastised by the woman's husband. The wise therefore condemn the materialistic path, both in this life and the next. Then even if he obtains some honey, he steals money and escapes punishment, but then another man cheats him and takes away that money. So it can mean wealth, it can mean carnal enjoyment, it can be any other pleasure also, which one tries to get, then one is attacked for it. Somebody cheats one and takes it away. So in this way, money never stays in one place. It is actually belonging to Bhagwan. Lakshmi is at the feet of Narayana alone. Now we want to make Lakshmi our own, then that is terrible. One has to look at her as a mother and have a worshipful attitude and do dan, dharma, do our duties. But if one tries to possess and become the owner of it, and then one will fall. So here, going further, he says that at some places they are unable to ward off the cold, the sun, the storm, the rain, and they sit down helpless. While elsewhere they sell between themselves whatever commodity they have with them and make enemies of one another. On the contrary, because of their greed. So what does that mean here? He becomes very morose, being unable to tolerate the threefold miseries. So this heat, cold, wind, rainfall, etc., they are symbolic of this, the three tapas. Adidevik, Adibhautik, Adhyatmik tapas. And cheated in business transactions creates enemies. So when people cheat one another even by slight amounts, then they become enemies. Then further he says, on some occasions when impoverished and deprived of a bed, a mat to squat on, a dwelling and conveyance for some pleasure trip in that forest, they ask these of one another. But on failing to secure the desired objects, they cast a wistful look on others' property and incur ignominy. So, what does that mean? Sometimes one doesn't have proper place to stay, doesn't have a place to sit properly, some basic other necessities. And when one can't get those by fair means, then what will one do? Seize the property of others unfairly. So if one is born that way, for some karmic reason one is born, nobody gives, I mean, our Shastra doesn't say that under these circumstances you can your theft is justified. No, Purushartha is given to you. You can work hard, still be on the path of Dharma, earn your livelihood, lift yourself to higher positions slowly, and get what you don't have. But in the world, it gets justified that a person who is poor is getting exploited, and whatever that person does, the means are not important. And finally, that person goes ahead and does some dan dharma with that corrupt money that he has attained somehow, and the person gets glorified. Shastra doesn't say like that. If dharma is compromised, that is finished. That person, the downfall of that person has started from then onwards. When will one be able to see that outside? That's a different matter. That time will anyway catch up, karma will catch up. But in the world, one doesn't think like that. One sees immediate. I don't have, somebody has, I will grab it from that person and I will enjoy. And sometimes that gets glorified also. What is the means that the person adopted to reach where that person reached? That is more important from spiritual standpoint, karmic standpoint, but world worships success, power, position much more than the method of getting it. No matter how they get it, it's okay. They got it. And the world will always downplay the power of dharma, and they will always say that somebody was dharmic and they didn't achieve greatness. This person did it through adharmic ways. This is Kali Yuga. We have to be like this only. Otherwise, we have to be settling for whatever is ordinary or lesser than that, and then suffer. So now, those are conditionings of the world. Here, he tells all this. Bharat Raja, Jada Bharat tells this to Raja Rahugana. Then he further explains about marriage. So he says, in spite of the feeling of animosity uh, having been aggravated by their attraction for one another's wealth, they enter into marital relations with one another, and while sporting along this road, are reduced to a miserable condition through great many hardships, monetary losses, and calamities. So that what does that mean? Although people may be enemies, in order to fulfill their desires, they sometimes marry. But then they divorce. Then there are so many difficulties that come because that marriage was not on the basis of some deeper emotions of love, of understanding, of trust, of respect. It was some material thing, and they married, though they don't like each other. But they want some power, together if we come, our group will be the biggest, and array, but you were enemies before and you don't get along with each other, but people do all that. So he says there are many difficulties: happiness, distress, attachment, hate, fear, false prestige, madness, lamentation, bewilderment, insult, enmity, envy, greed, thirst, tribulation, disease, birth, old age, death. All this one goes through. Terrible. Now, if the merchant frees himself on his position, he again returns home completely addicted to carnal pleasure. After the death of his parents, he becomes attached to his newly born children and he continues to loiter in the forest of material existence, showing no interest in spiritual life even at the point of death. See, that is the power of Maya. Even till the last minute, when one is going to die, one is still not turning spiritual. How much the troubles of the samsara, if each one also, if one just thinks about it, there is so much of trouble. Imagine one going through this, and not only some of these, many of these, if one is going through, still the mind is not turning towards the Lord. That means how much level of, see, that adharma no, will take us like that. Adharma will pull us towards more and more adharma and away from Bhagavan, away from satsang, away from sattvic karma. And that's why adharma is not just one independent action. It will bring that tendency further, which will pull the person away. More and more and more and more adharma. Same way, dharma is not one independent action. When one does dharma, it will create sattvic impressions, it will make a person happy, and that will make the person live more dharmic way. So both are like that. We have to stick to dharma as much as one can because that is the way out. That is the way out of this atavi. Otherwise, one is lost in this forest. And so here he says this, that this person does not come back to Bhagwan even though going through so much of misery. So this path of the material world is full of miseries and dangers. Sometimes one loses, sometimes one gains, separated from the parents by death, becomes attached to the children, cries out of fear. Sometimes he is happy maintaining his family, sometimes sings melodiously, enjoys life, becomes more and more entangled, but he has forgotten his separation from the Lord, so doesn't think of the Lord. Those who are the devotees, they actually think of Bhagavan at all times, in pain, in pleasure, in fear, in all the challenges, they will think of Bhagavan. The bhogi is exactly opposite. In none of the challenges, he is thinking of Bhagavan. So many leaders, they, or whatever, achievers, they conquer their enemies, they achieve great land, they establish big empires, and even they lay down their lives fighting one another, sorry. Uh, but they don't take up spiritual path. Big monarchs, kings, achievers, big, in any field it may be. And on the contrary, they may even say proudly, I don't believe in God and this is all man-made and this is all, uh, only creating more divisions, as though other things which are creating divisions, they have left all that. Religion brings division, religion brings war, religion brings, exploitation. So you don't want religion. Everything else also is doing that or not? How much money has brought war and exploitation and disease and death and all that? Then do you leave money? How much relationships, how much people exploit each other? So do you leave people? Conveniently, we say, no, religion I don't want. How much in the name of science also oppression has happened? So do we leave science? How much in the name of this power just to dominate? How many people have uh, come to such powerful positions? And even today you see now, so much of it is a ego battles, power battles. So does anybody stop holding positions? Very convenient to, one doesn't want to think consistently and doesn't want to go deeper and is basically scared that if you come to spiritual path, one will come face to face with who one is. One doesn't want to face. There will be a certain ugliness which will come forward. Doesn't want to face it. So escape. It will be show a mirror. Especially I'm talking about Sanatana Dharma and the Hindu culture here in this context when I use the word religion. Our culture very clearly says Sarvasya Lochanam Shastram. Shastra will give the right vision, but at the same time, Shastra will also hold a mirror. saying this is who you are at this moment, and you are responsible for who you are. Don't blame people, don't blame circumstances, don't blame God, don't blame planets, don't blame anybody else. You are responsible for who you are, and you see this is where you are. But your true nature is divine. That also Shastra will say, and it will help to redeem and come out of all this also. But to see who I am, that ugliness I don't want. So one doesn't want to come. So he says, many great kings, expert in rituals, wars, could not attain the loving service of the Lord. Why? Because they are stuck in I, me, and mine. So they create enmity against the rival kings and others, competitors, whoever are they, and then they died without turning towards Bhagwan. Then further he says that he takes shelter of creepers and desires to hear the chirping birds in those creepers. So embraced in his wife's arms, he loses discrimination and knowledge of life's goal. He becomes captivated by the talks and the glances of his wife, his children, and he throws himself into material existence. Now, afraid of roaring lions in the forest, he makes friends with cranes, herons, and vultures. So, what is the parallel here? The Lord's weapon, the wheel of time, the chakra, is the lion actually in this context. And fearing that death, one doesn't want to die. Na? That chakra is Kala chakra, means death. It will move and then devour everything in its force. Kalosmi lokakshayakrit pravruddha, Bhagavan says in the 11th chapter. I am that time which devours everything. That is the temporary nature of the samsara. It will happen. So what does he say? That the parallel is that fearing this death, now he wants to worship somebody who can save him from death. So he takes the shelter of whom? Of impostors, of man-made gods. Now what does man-made gods here mean? Please remember, here it does not mean the forms that we have. Man-made gods are how we say na, that this person is god of this field. So one takes refuge of such people. Or he is the most powerful person in this field. So one takes refuge of such people. Or some higher beings, some devatas, sambhuta, preta, yaksha, pishacha, all these. So some people who have some control on these, they will take refuge of such people. And through them try to get some power, through them try to get some, as though freedom from death one can get. But one is attempting to become immortal through any of these. Through wealth, through power, through money, through progeny, through all these. But immortality is not gained like that. That is only through self-knowledge. So, cheated by these people, so these cranes, he comes to the association of swans, but out of misfortune, he cannot follow them and gives up their company for the company of monkeys. So he gets cheated because they themselves are not anchored in Bhagavan. We take refuge of people who are not anchored in Bhagavan. What will happen to us? They are sometimes not even anchored in Dharma, so they will exploit. Then one runs from here to there, finds somebody else, there one gets exploited, goes to somebody else. That's what is mentioned here. So cheated by this pseudo spiritual people also, or people of power, that person takes refuge of some others, some other Baba, some other Brahmana, some other Pandit, but he can't follow the dharmic ways, and again takes shelter amongst the people of the lower strata, and then again engages in carnal pleasure without knowing the goal of life. Like that monkey, the example given is of the monkey. So this monkey is very fickle minded. So that's what is said here. So the example given here is this. Not finding behavior to the liking. So from this cranes and herons, vultures, they go to swans, from swans to monkeys. So he says that they're not happy with the behavior of these swans, so they approach monkeys, and their senses being fully gratified with amorous sports natural to their race, each pair gets so absorbed in the looking at each other, like the monkeys, they get absorbed in that carnal sports. So they absorbed in looking at each other's face that they forget even the fast approaching death. Seeking delight in trees and fond of sons and wives, they are impatient with animal desire for sexual indulgence and powerless to get rid of their bondage. When falling into some ravine through inadvertence, this company of merchants catches hold of some creeper and remains suspended by it, afraid of the elephant below. Remember this example which comes, famous example where somebody is falling into the well, there's a creeper coming out of the walls of the well, one is hanging delicately by that. There's a, in that analogy that comes in Mahabharata also, it's here in Bhagavatam, a little different way, that there's a elephant down there, there's a tiger up. Bhagavatam gives elephant example. There it is snakes. Pythons are down, tiger is up, one is hanging with a creeper delicate, anywhere by any time one will fall. And there is a honeycomb, and one drop of honey is falling out of it, and this person is trying to lick that by putting the tongue out. That deep is the craving in the mind of the jiva. So here that's what is said. This jiva falls and yet is not remembering Bhagwan. Those people who are saints, who are devotees, who have controlled their mind, who have surrendered to Bhagwan, this jiva, or this group of merchants, doesn't seek their refuge. And so those who have done this control of the mind, etc., they easily attain liberation, though they are living in the same atavi, the same forest of transmigration, they are also living. It's not that they are born somewhere else. They are also born in the same forest, but they have understood. So they are out of this. Such people one should go to. But one is going to all kinds of other people who themselves are lusty, greedy, vulgar, violent, and then getting lost. So just like the jumpy monkey jumps from one branch to another without any profit, merely for carnal pleasure, in that way, this jiva migrates from one body to another. In every body, one goes on indulging as much as one can and becomes attached to people, to things, to pleasure, creates more karmic bondage, again drops the body, again takes. So this goes on. Finally, he concludes with this analogy saying that not paying attention, he falls into a mountain cave. He becomes afraid of an elephant in the back of the cave and remains stranded, holding on to a creeper. So, engaging in sinful activities out of fear of death, falls into ignorance, accepts the shelter of, only when he accepts the shelter of dharmic karma can he be actually elevated to higher planes. Otherwise, the person is dead and goes round and round in the cycle of birth and death. And so, having given all this, what does Jadabhara tell Rahugana? He says that Rahugana, in this 20th shloka, he says, Rahugana tvamapi yadvanosya sanyasta danda krita bhuta maitraha asajjitatma harisevayashitam jnana simadaya tarati param. This is his beautiful advice. And what does he say? That, oh Rahugana, you are also on this track. As a jiva in this bhava atavi, you are also on the same track as those merchants. So what you should do now? You give up all forms of violence. And you be friendly to all people. Krita bhuta maitraha sanyasta dandaha. Meaning give up all forms of violence and this power that you are having, that I am the king and all that. You renounce that. Be friendly to all. Sarva bhuta, krita bhuta maitra. Then what you should do? Jnanasi. So take the sword of knowledge and sharpen that with Hari Sevaya, Shitam Hari Sevaya, with the service of Bhagwan. You sharpen that sword and asajjit atma, with a mind which is free from all attachments, what you should do? You should destroy this bhavatavi, go beyond. Jnanasimadaya tara atiparam. You go across this bhavatavi, go beyond this forest of samsara, and this is where he concludes his upadesha. So now Rahugana is very happy, and he says that this human birth is the best of all births, and what is the use of any other birth? It is only in this human birth that we can actually serve the Lord consciously, attain oneness with the Lord through our sadhana, through our purushartha. And so this is possible how? Because of abundant association with great sadhu, santa, mahatma. In this very atavi, we have to find them. So does it mean that long association is required with them? So in the next verse immediately he says, no, even a few seconds and moments. You see, he is with Jada Bharat for how many? Few minutes. In that he has got everything. So he says that just by the dust of your lotus feet, all my sins have been destroyed and I have pure bhakti towards Adhokshaja, towards Bhagavan Vishnu. Just for a moment, few moments I got associated with you now, and I am freed from so much of false prestige and argumentation and lack of discrimination. All these bind the jiva. He says, even a few moments of sangha with such sadhus and mahatmas, how it has purified my mind. So he says, I offer my respects, I bow down to you. And these great devotees, they appear as sometimes small children, sometimes as very young people, sometimes as brahmanas, sometimes any form, they are hidden. One will not be able to identify them just by looking at the exterior. But if the demand is there, they will come into your life and one will be able to then follow. So, by their mercy, may there be good fortune even in the royal dynasties. So, now so Rahugana has said all this. Now, what does Jada Bharat, what does he do? He is a Paramhamsa. So, he finished giving the Upadesh. Jada Bharat got the clarity. Rahugana got the clarity, so he left. Um, he did not have any personal this thing, that I am being insulted or anything like that. Nothing. He just left. Quietly, he went away to wander all over the earth, meaning share this knowledge with as many people as possible and live like a avadhut, free. Now, Rahugana, he has understood. So, what did he do? He also gave up the idea that I am this jiva, I am this body. And he also got the abidance in the higher state. Now you just see that deer also got mukti. Jada Bharat anyway has got mukti. So now this portion concludes that this is the glory. This whole portion is actually the glory of Bharat Raja. And example Shukdev ji gives is that small flies, they cannot follow the path of Garuda. Garuda, where all it will go. Small flies can't reach all those places. Same way, the life of Bharat Raja is like this Garuda, and we are like the small flies. Even though there may be great kings like Rahugana, etc., they are like small flies compared to the life of Bharat Raja. So, how did he become so great? Because of his renunciation and his abidance in the lotus feet of the Lord, and he is serving Bhagavan, and his only thought is that. So, in the prime of his life, where he had all power and everything, he had a great family and he ruled for so many years, then he finally gave up all that. And example given here is he gave up all that as if they were stool. Although such things are very difficult to give up, people don't give up so easily. Such power he had, but he gave up because of his vivek, that human life is not meant only for all this. One has seen through all this and renounced it to realize the truth. See, his father Rishabdev himself had set that example. So that also is a very important thing to understand. Rishabh Dev Ji himself is a great king, and then he left, renounced everything, and we saw his life. Now his son Bharat also does that same thing. So that is the tradition given set up in our country, that one uses power for a certain time for the well-being of the society, for one's own evolution, sees through the world, sees through everything, power, pleasure, prestige, popularity, all that, renounces it. Then there is no taste for it anymore. One will not go back to it also. Like it is said here, you reject it like a stool. Who will go back to one stool? Nobody goes back to the stool. It is waste, thrown out. One has seen through the samsara, spit it out. One moves forward only towards spiritual evolution. So he concludes here by saying that the last few are very beautiful uh, things which are given here. That land, son, relatives, riches, wife, they all are very difficult to give up. Bharat Raja, uh, his wealth was desired even by devatas, and they wanted to be in his service. He was such a great king, but he did not have desire for it. Why? Because he is a person who wanted liberation. Actually, even liberation he did not want. This is Bhagavatam, so bhakti is emphasized here. So he says this great devotee Bharat Raja did not even seek liberation. He actually wanted to only serve Bhagwan and remember the Lord at all times. So this was befitting a great personality like him, for even liberation is considered insignificant for those whose minds are attracted to the loving service of God. So while Bharat Raja had given up the body as a deer, he had prayed for a few things. What did he pray for? He says, I offer my respect to that Supreme Lord who is Yajnaya, who is sacrifice personified, who is Dharmapataye, the Lord of all dharmas, who is Vidhi Naipunaya, who is a protector of all the religions. Vidhi Nished, the Vidhi word symbolizes religion here. Then the personification of very embodiment of yoga. So Yogaya. Then Sankhya Shirase, who is the very supreme source of all knowledge, especially of the self. Then uh, Prakriti, Prakriti Ishwaraya, the Lord of the Prakriti, who is Narayana, who is Hari. He had sung this glory of Bhagavan, and when he had dropped the body of the deer, so he attained oneness with the Lord in the next life as Jada Bharat, and he spread this knowledge to everybody, and he lived a glorious life. So the falashruti of this, at the end of this 14th chapter, is this: if one hears, chants this life of Bharatji with great humility, devotion, the life of Bharatji is worshipped by so many devotees, then one will attain auspiciousness, long life, wealth, fame, heaven, liberation, and bhakti for the Lord. And all desirable things without depending on anything or anyone else. That is the falashruti here of this particular chapter, which is the 14th one. So we have done 13, 14 combined together. So that's where is the beautiful life of Bharatji that concludes here. And then we again come back to Priyavrat Raja's dynasty that we will take up in our next class. What happened to this? 1 minute. प्रिया प्रीतमती मंगल मंगल कांति हसनी दशनती मंगल मंगल सब मंगल शिव चंद्रिका मंगल छवि मंगल अंग अंग मंगल गौर श्याम रंग के मंगल अति कटि रे पटि मंगल चितम सागर कोटि मंगल शोभा कमल मंगल माधुरी सुत पहन की मंगल सीता मधुकी मंगल श्री जगन्नाथ की मंगल मंगल चरण अरुण तरुण मंगल शरणि भगवती हरि जन मंगल मंगल श्री राधा मंगल आरती प्रिया प्रीतम मंगल प्रीति राधा वृद्धिशचंद्र भगवान की जय। ओम न तत्र सूर्यो भाति न चंद्र तारकम् नेमा विद्युतो भान्तिकुतो यमग्निः तमेव भान्तमनुभाति सर्वम् तस्य भासा सर्वमिदं विभाति। सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की। ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम।